Now that I've had some time to make some notes on the reveals from last night, I'm not going to go over everything because I'm the Space Wolves guy. That's what I play. I think the reveal changed a lot from what people were kind of projecting what their thoughts about the Space Wolves going forward was going to be. I will allude to tabletop tactics because they had a whole breakdown of what they thought was staying and what they thought was leaving and what might be going or staying. And their reaction video was pretty good this morning on what their interpretations of the reveal. I think the most important part about the reveal was how they revealed it, and the context surrounding that. It was very cool. It was very throwback, and a lot of new players don't recognize the history of the game going back to second and third edition, which this is very, very throwback to second and third edition. And then, of course, what all this leads to is almost like a renaissance of its origins, at least when the game started to really kind of be fine-tuned and a little bit more people gravitating towards it. The first war for Armageddon led to the second and third war. Armageddon, it's all about the same time of the Eye of Terror campaign. And there was a lot of really cool stuff that spun out of that, modern players really don't know about. And the third war for Armageddon brought a lot of things together. And that codex, the Armageddon codex in general, brought a lot of different army variations and rules that didn't exist in the regular army codexes. The way they revealed it last night, obviously with some chaos, more especially the Khorne, because they were the main antagonists of the Armageddon War. Obviously, Grey Knights and then Space Wolves, and the subsequent month of shame that happened after that. But it was very cool to see that nod to the old days, the innocent days of 40K. And then, does that mean that they're gonna do something with the Armageddon Steel Legion, who was the primary Imperial Guard force at the time? That was they've got the Deathcore Creed, but they haven't had the Steel Legion models in a very long time, which was my first Imperial Guard army. So all that aside, they revealed the Grey Hunters, they revealed the Blood Claws, they revealed a new Wolf Priest, the Head Takers, Wolf Guard Battle Leader, and then teased the Terminator part of the Wolf Guard. So, great stuff. I'm not going to rehash everything that's there, but clearly they're heavily leaning towards OBSEC and movement, fast-moving units, at least as far as infantry stuff goes. So my initial reaction, I like that the size is going to be modernized finally. We've had nothing but firstborn size box sets for a long time, so that's great. They look more Viking and less wolf/furry, which is good. That needed to be addressed. It was furry with a hint of Viking up until this point. What they didn't talk about was Terminators. They alluded to Wolfguard being able to take Terminator armor, but that's where they left it. They did say that they had 15 more data cards to reveal, and I think that obviously is where we're going to see a lot of the things along those lines, and that also leaves a lot to be chopped off. Which, going through the data slates, there's a lot of fat that can be trimmed anyway, so I'm not overly worried about that. With all that being said, I put together 3 categories: what they're going to keep, what's gone, and maybes. With the maybes, that was my shortest list. There's 15 more spots to fill And I put Crom Dragon Gaze, Lucas the Trickster, Stormwolf, Stormfang, Herald Deathwolf, and the Thunderwolves. A lot of these characters, like the Wolf Lords, that are in charge of these great companies, there aren't really characters for them anyways. So I can see Crom and Lucas going away. The Stormwolf and the Stormfang aerial transports, I don't know. Not a lot of people use them. They're expensive models. I don't see any real reason for them, but there's no real reason to get rid of them either. Herald Deathwolf. I mean, I think Crom, Lucas, and Herald Deathwolf are more likely to be in the Gone slot than the Stormwolf, the Stormfang, and the Thunderwolves are to the keep side of things. You know, the Thunderwolves have been a staple, but it's kind of been, you know, they got nerfed in the last edition. But, you know, it's kind of like a quintessential unit within the Space Wolves, but they've got a sizing issue. You know, they're going to have to do something with them. They've got to be bigger. Tabletop Tactics did a really good breakdown of this and why they think they're going to be non-existent going forward. I've never used them. I don't plan on using them. I think if they do use them, it might be a unit of 3 and that's it. Without any named character leaders. The aerial transports, you know, it's a fast-moving army as it is. Are they necessary? I don't think so. The only thing that the Wolves really lack are strong scout models. But the game is, the boards are shorter in terms of how quickly armies can get across the table. So I don't know if it's necessary to have airborne transports anymore. With what I think is going to go, Canis Wolfborn, they don't need him, especially if they shrink it to a unit of 3, or if they get rid of them altogether. Cyber Wolves, stupid, redundant. They're going to use the companions that come with the head takers anyways, and those are probably going to end up being the Fenrisian Wolves because you can separate them from the unit. The same thing with the Fenrisian data sites. They're going to be gone. I mean, you're going to get them as part of the head takers. Venerable Space Wolf Dreadnought, don't need it. There's already a Venerable Dreadnought data card for the Space Wolves. And I think Long Fangs and Wolf Scouts are gone because heavy intercessors, there's all kinds of options for those anyways. As far as what's staying, I think Arjak is safe. He's too important. Plus, Terminators seem to be kind of a theme for 10th edition. I think Bjorn's going to stay. There's talk about him going to, you know, Legends units or whatever. But I mean, he is like the cornerstone of the Space Wolves army. They can't get rid of him. I think they are going to keep, obviously, the Hounds of Mordecai for lore purposes. And they're one of the only scout units that the Wolves have. You know, they brought the Wolf Priest back, so that leads me to believe they're going to keep the Iron Priest. Y'all Stormcaller, I think they've got to keep him. He's too important. Another good Terminator candidate. There's no real psychers for obvious reasons within the Space Wolves, but he's one of the few, so I think they're going to keep him. Ragnar, he's a newer model. They're going to keep him. He's the right size, and was refreshed not that long ago. Plus, in gameplay, a lot of people are pairing him with Blade Guard veterans anyway, so with this new Head Takers unit, I think he'll be ripe to lead that up. Skyclaws, I think they're going to stay. Ulrich the Slayer, he's a big name. You got to keep him. The Wolfguard Terminators, they've kind of already alluded to those, and again, it follows that Terminator theme. Wolfen are a relatively new release. I think they're going to keep those because eventually they're going to bring the 13th Company back with Lehman Ross. I think it's risky to pull Murderfang. I don't know that they'll keep those two as a same box. They might be two separate models, but they're older dreadnoughts anyway, so I don't see why they would be bigger units than what they are as far as size goes. And then obviously Logan Grimnar, they've got to keep him, but I think they're going to reduce him to one data card, and they'll probably take the Slay away. I think they're just going to make him be a Terminator. But that leaves me with only 13 keeps. So, you know, with my rationale, the Stormwolf, the Stormfang, and the Thunderwolf are 3 maybes that might go in the keep category. I just don't see them keeping Crom. You know, these Wolf Lords, there's no characters. Why him? You know, Ragnar is an obvious one, but Lucas, I think, is gone, and Harold Deathwolf is definitely gone, and you know, Canis Wolfhorn, because the whole Wolf Rider thing, I think, is in jeopardy. I mean, at this point, with everything getting bigger, the Wolf Riders would have to be the size of like a Khorne Lord on Juggernaut, and you're not getting a lot of those on the table, not with the modern gameplay. And that's just my feelings. Again, I could be wrong. I think there's a lot of people that have been wrong, didn't have some of this on their bingo card. And, I mean, maybe they're going to revamp a lot of whole new, I mean, they've got 15 units that they've still got to, bring out. So who knows? My only disappointment with last night was, they only suggested that there's 3 detachments. Where most all the other codexes got 8, you know. I hope that gets expanded on. But again, with what's coming out, you know, there's a lot of people were disappointed with no Russ. But if you think about the timeline and where they're going with things, with the first war, Armageddon again. So they've got to go through the next couple Armageddons and the Eye of Terror, which, I mean, we're right around that era. So I still think they might conclude 10th edition with bringing back the 13th Company and Lehman Russ. I still think that's, which is also why they're not going to get rid of the Wolfen. They can't. Unless they get rid of him now and bring him back in 11th with Russ in the 13th, but that would be stupid. But that's all I got. Like, share, subscribe. Find me on YouTube. I need some subscribers on YouTube. And to all my wolf brothers out there,